You're listening to Were You Still Talking? Okay, I'm going to try an intro. And if I screwed up, too bad, because I don't like to edit. Okay. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Today in my studio, I have Dan Squire. He is someone I've done acting with at least once. And let's see, what else do I know about him? Almost nothing. He was in the Navy a long time ago. He's been married, I think, for a very long time. Has 2 kids. And right now you're working as a driver, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, locally.
And you still participate locally in theater?
Yes.
Local theater?
Yeah, when I can.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to do it more, but, I'm busy.
It's just time keep you from it?
Yeah, I mean, I did Blithe Spirit was the last show I did, and that was at the first of the year already, so it's been 6 or 7 months. And
I didn't realize that was so long ago.
Yeah, I know.
That seemed like just a minute ago.
That was a big commitment,
uh-huh.
And I enjoyed every minute of it, but it was, so my wife was very busy, taking care of almost all the things with the kids and everything, so it was, she's great that way, but I don't want to do too many shows.
You don't want to leave it there all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how a lot of these people involved with local shows do it.
Yeah. I manage about 1 show a season is about the best I can do.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it doesn't get to be too much. But because I'm doing that, and I also do things with the Radio Redux at the Holt Center.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I haven't been on stage yet. I've been involved with it for years, but yeah. Fred Crafts,
you have? Okay.
Fred Crafts, he knows that I want to be involved on stage,
uh-huh.
But I've been helping out backstage for years, and he came and saw Blithe Spirit and liked it a lot and said, well, we'll have to get you on stage next season, so I'm hoping for the best.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that that has done so well is really cool. Like,
it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and he's able to get a big audience to do it. It just seems, of course, haven't been yet, but
well, I started helping out when they were at the Wildish in Springfield,
mm-hmm.
just at doing concessions or ushering or whatever. And then now that they're at the Holt Center has their own paid staff.
Oh, right.
For most things. So I help set it up and take it down, and that's about it, But there's a lot of things to move and to pack in and pack out, so we do that the Monday before the show goes on the air. And it takes, depending on how elaborate it is, like the Christmas show is very elaborate and can take longer. It can take an hour or 2 to set the whole thing up. And
my goodness.
Sunday, when the matinee's over, you hang around and take it all back down and pack it out.
Yeah. And how many people are on stage? How many people are doing it?
It depends from show to show, but it's usually 8 or 10.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's a pretty big cast.
Wow.
But you still have people doubling parts and everything because it's just done with voices. It's old-time radio recreation. So,
which is kind of what podcasting is.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I'm shocked that I think I'm already too late, but the podcasting is exploding. Like, suddenly all these celebrities want to get into it, which makes it tougher for folks like myself. But,
It's funny because I noticed some celebrities were involved in it early, mm-hmm. and then gave up on it.
True. Oh, that's true.
Like people like Alton Brown and like that.
Uh-huh.
I used to listen to his podcast, and then he just stopped doing it. And I think that's why. I think podcasting hadn't taken off. And
there's still, the biggest, I realized though, because I started listening to podcasts because I had this weird vision problem. So I couldn't do anything but listen to stuff. So the ones I started with are actually huge. And then the biggest one, Joe Rogan, he started in 2004, I think. I mean, there was like no one podcasting, and other people like that who. So I think the people who stayed. Well, his became a hit probably because he has a lot of weird people on. But
I actually haven't listened to his. I'll have to try. I'll have to try it out.
I can't really recommend it, except for some of the guests are just like unbelievable. He just had a guy on that worked at a site near Area 51, and had some amazing things to say.
Okay.
And it's like, I thought we were done with this stuff. But when you hear what he says, and there's a documentary on Netflix about it. I don't remember what it's called, but maybe I'll put it in the show notes if I care to. Just the stuff he's talking about is like mind-blowing, and he comes up with some things that make it seem like I was almost on the cutting edge of, oh, come on, there's no aliens because of what we can see now with telescopes, what science is getting to. You can't travel speed of light, all these different things. And he presented it like, man, we just don't know this stuff.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
Because that's where I'm at. I'm at, there probably is other life out there, but it's so far away that I don't think it's,
and that's
hanging around.
Right. And that's what we always assume. But then I look at, if I actually, if you think about the science behind sci-fi movies and television shows, they're talking about possibilities that we can't even approach yet. And the biggest one being if you could warp space, actually.
Right.
Because warp speed in Star Trek is still really, really slow. But if you could warp space and go through like a black hole or something, anyway. Yeah. It's interesting. So I think somewhere, it was when you emailed me, you said you thought about starting a podcast.
Yeah, I listened to all kinds of podcasts, but there's only one or two that I've stuck with. Mm-hmm. I'll listen to, I will occasionally go and listen to true crime because I'm as fascinated with that as anybody. But you have to take a break after a while. You just want to go. Just want to go live in a cave.
Yeah, it's true. It's real stuff.
People are just horrible.
People are.
But I do like them a lot. And then, talking about Area 51 and all that, there's another one, and I should have looked it up to get the name of it, but it's a fun podcast all about that sort of thing. Unexplained phenomena, missing persons cases, UFOs, and it's gosh, I should have looked it up, but
that's anyway, okay. We're not big on facts.
Yeah, it's but those are fun to listen to. And I listened to one. He plays 78 RPM records.
Oh, interesting.
Because
cool. Now, why would you like that?
I sort of collect those. I don't have, I don't have a house full of them like some people do. I've got a closet full of them. But
that's still a lot more than most.
Probably 200 or 300. I haven't really counted.
Wow.
But, he plays all kinds of things. He specializes in playing music, dance band music from the 20s and 30s. But he'll play stuff from some of it's over 100 years old already.
Oh, right.
It was recorded, in 1903 or something. It's acoustically back then. And it's a fun show. He's a very talented ragtime piano player.
Okay.
In real life. But he's been doing this podcast for years called The Shellac Stack.
Oh, awesome.
78s are made of shellac, for those that don't know. They're not made of vinyl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what is shellac? I'm forgetting.
It's almost like a varnish, that's made out of it's made from beetles, some beetle shells. They
wow.
pulverize them and.
Because I guess I always think of it shellacking something as cleaning. I always think of cleaning when I.
No, they're more like a finish. Like
a finish,
like a varnish or a lacquer.
Huh.
But they're heavy and brittle. They're vinyl's light and flexible. The shellac is heavy, so you have to be really careful not to break them. But
do you still find them at garage sales and
I find a lot of them
and stuff? Or
most places don't carry them, but there's the St. Vincent de Paul out in Springfield, out in Thurston. They have a very good selection of them, and I found some great ones. I found some jazz ones. I think they looked like they came from an old radio station, or someone had probably donated them that worked for a radio station.
Nice.
And I found some, Dave Brubeck, and there was a Miles Davis in there, and some Dizzy Gillespie, and just all kinds of great stuff.
Wow.
So I found probably 24 really good ones out there.
Those recordings are interesting too, because a lot of times those engineers they've either made their own equipment or it's like you can't find anything like that now. Very unique.
The thing
sound.
I like about them is they're really live performances. There wasn't any multi-track recording back then, and obviously the last they stopped making 78s in the 50s when vinyl LPs and stereo took over. So most of them are not multi-track recordings. So they would literally stick the whole band in the recording studio and just record the whole thing in one shot because they didn't have any means of doing multi-track. So you're listening to live recordings. You're not listening to things that have been, massaged in the studio to sound perfect. And
Well, it's interesting because most jazz was done that way all the way into the 70s. Not because they couldn't multi-track, but it's like, who would do that?
Yeah,
they're jazz musicians.
Yeah, they're jazz musicians.
They're jazz musicians.
Yeah.
Who would want to retake it?
Exactly.
And actually, even today, although they multi-track, they usually record live. It's just that they will do it over and over until they really like it.
Right.
In those days, that wasn't true.
No.
They would do it a couple times, and that, okay, that's it.
It's too expensive.
Let's go. Too expensive, and plus they were really good.
Yep.
It's not like you had to go,
Yep.
over and over. And they'd been playing the tunes forever, which is so different now because, especially pop stars, but most music writes in the studio. Even a lot of jazz musicians, they write in the studio, which is a whole switch. It's a complete turnaround.
Yeah.
Instead of touring for 100 shows and then going in and recording, they record and write, and then they take it out and figure out a way to make it sound similar on stage. Yeah, it's so different. But if you had a podcast, what would it be about?
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, that kind of got off track there. I thought it would be fun. He takes most of the things that he plays, and puts them into Audacity or whatever and cleans them up because those records are old and they're just intrinsically noisy anyway because shellac is not as smooth as vinyl, so you get a lot more hiss and things, pops and scratches. But I thought I could do that if I wanted to, but it might be fun just to play them warts and all. And I thought that might be fun to have a podcast where I just did that. We're just basically like a DJ radio, just play them live, just as you're recording it, just instead of going back and cleaning them up, just like.
Well, that's a really good idea for a podcast because those type of podcasts are tend to be more popular. Like, there's hundreds and thousands of podcasts like what I'm trying to do, just sitting people down and talking to them. But there's probably one that is playing 78 records, and there's probably zero that are doing it that way. I mean, I think people would be really interested in hearing that, especially because there's such a huge boom in records, records being sold again. I'm actually not an audiophile because I don't have the money. I think records, like, there's all this controversy about it. I've gone down this engineering rabbit hole before, but there's all these things about why and why not. It might sound better or not. And to me, if you've got a $10,000 and up system, records are going to sound amazing. If you don't, you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
And, when I first got a CD and I heard a few of the first bands to be out on CD, gosh, I'm trying to remember what the band was that I thought was so amazing. I can't remember their name. Les Claypool.
Okay.
Who that? Anyway, I was just like, there's no hiss. This is amazing.
I still remember the first CD I ever heard. I still remember. It was somewhere, it was Bradford or someplace, here in town. Back in the 80s, and I was used to cassettes. Yeah, we had an old JCPenney or whatever stereo at home that would play records, but I was used to cassettes, so I was used to that hiss before the music would start.
Oh, right. Once you played it once, you got the hiss.
And then I went into this place and we were looking at stuff because I was thinking about buying a portable CD player, which weren't that portable back then. They ran on like 6C batteries and you wore it like a purse. But this guy demonstrated a CD player for me, and he put in Peter Gabriel's "So."
Oh yeah,
and
there's another good example.
It was Sledgehammer, and I heard total silence. Then all of a sudden, that little doodly doo came out of nowhere, and it was like, wow! And then that song, boom! The way that song hits, it was amazing. So I mean,
despite on top of the fact that it's an amazingly well engineered and written song, but to hear it like that without just clean and pristine. And the interesting thing was, it's been quite a cycle because the first days of CD, they did everything onto tape, and then they mixed it on tape. They mixed it down to a true 2-track, and then they sent it to the manufacturer who put it on a CD. Yeah. That's where it got to CD. So now they've kind of gone back to that because people don't like digital, And it's like you wouldn't know if I A-B'd it for you, but the same engineer did it onto tape or did it digitally, you wouldn't know. He uses all the same stuff. Yeah, it's all that fancy equipment and the guy's ears that makes it amazing.
Well, it used to be the opposite. It was a big deal. I had a copy on, I don't know whatever happened to it. I had a copy on CD of Ry Cooder's "Bop Till You Drop." which was the first fully digital album ever. So you had a CD of that. It was all, there was no analog involved whatsoever.
And there used to be a little symbol on the CD. I can't remember. It was like ADD.
Yeah, this was like DDD.
DD, yeah.
And it was such a big deal. And now it's like, oh, digital. And I'm just like, no, CDs are better. They are.
Thank God I found somebody that knows this.
I like records, but I understand all about the frequency limitations and all of it. Yeah.
And I think some of what happened was that we got to MP3s, and MP3s can sound like crap. I mean, if they're compressed too much, then yes, they're not giving you the same sounds. But I know an incredibly talented engineer in town, probably one of the best here, who's recorded on Grammy-winning albums, and his daughter. I mean, it's been over 10 years since I was in his studio, but last time I was, he said, oh yeah, my daughter gave me the the MP3 challenge, and she totally nailed me because I couldn't tell the difference.
That's great.
You tell me, Dad. Yeah. So it's pretty close. But I think that might be part of what sent people back to records, is that everything was getting so digital. And if you overcompress, and I'm even that way. I put out my podcast at 192, which is completely unnecessary for a podcast, but it's like, I want a little bit of fidelity. I have music for 30 seconds at the beginning. I want it in the stereo at least, which a lot of them aren't, but I don't think anyone cares or knows about that, except for folks like myself. And then, so how? Now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. How did you get into acting? Where'd you start?
I never did it in school. My sisters did it. I remember, which was very. I kind of wanted to, watching them, but for some reason I did. I was in marching band and things in school, so I didn't do drama. But when I was in the Navy, we. Not long after I was in Japan for 3 years, and not long after I got there, the ship left without me. I was assigned to temporary duty and had to stay on base, and the ship went out for 6 months. And got to go to all these amazing places, Australia and Hong Kong and Singapore and all these places, and I was stuck in Japan. And I found out that somebody had a little theater group on base. And so I kind of checked that out just for something to do, because there wasn't a lot to do. It's expensive in living in Japan. If you go off base, it's reasonable if you're on base, because back when you're just starting out, I was just like 19 or 20, they give you a meal card and everything, and you get, you can go eat for free. But if you go out into, and you do, because you want to go out there and see and experience everything, but the food and things are expensive.
Right.
So you spend a lot of time on base, and after a while you're just like, what am I, So I'll go check out this theater group, and they were doing a melodrama. They were doing Dirty Work at the Crossroads. Oh, fun. Which is very funny. It's a just over the top, silly melodrama. And so I helped, just like as a stagehand or whatever you want to call it, just a gopher, and that was fun. And then the next thing they did was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I'm going to be serious now. Yeah. And so I got to play one of the inmates or patients or whatever you want to call them, And I played Martini, which is the part Danny DeVito played in the movie. Yeah,
I know the part well. Yeah. I went to see the play here. I don't remember when. It must have been before I moved to LA. It was a long time ago. But I had seen the movie, and so I thought, this will be fun.
The play's really good, too. Everybody raves about the movie. No, it's pretty intense.
It's like, my God, because I didn't think about how intense it gets, and you're watching it on stage, and, I was right up front, because almost every theater in town, you're right up front. So it was intense. I was pretty shocked. And they did whoever it was, they did an amazing job. So when they were doing the shock therapy and stuff, it was like, oh my God, that's oof. Yeah, it's different as a play.
Yeah, it was interesting. We only did a few. I mean, we rehearsed for, I don't remember how long now, but a fair amount, and then only did 3 shows. It's like one weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because there's only so many people on base that are going to come and see that. And that was it for that. I don't remember why. I think what happened was I got transferred to a different base. That's right. And stopped doing it. And then when I got out in about 1990, it was a couple of years later, I just happened to see an ad in the paper, because they used to do that, they used to put ads in the Register Guard. that the VLT was having auditions for Hound of the Baskervilles. I went, hey, I've acted. I'll go try that.
Oh, great.
And so I went up there and auditioned and got a part.
Uh-huh.
You know, first time I ever auditioned at VLT, I got a part. So it was like, and that was a lot of fun. I got to play the bad guy. And just kind of, I really took to it. And, you know, love the VLT. It's great. And I did 4 shows there, and then my work schedule changed, and I was working in the evenings and couldn't do the rehearsals or the performances. So I gave it up for years, and but finally got back into it. We moved to Roseburg for a while, for about 3 years, and I got involved with their little theater down there. And so as soon as we came back here, I went right back to VLT and was in a show with you.
Oh, really?
That was the first one I did.
First one you did
when I came back. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I auditioned for Explorers Club or whatever it was, and did not get a part. And then so I tried out for Scrooge. And
well, Scrooge was way better.
It was
from what I hear.
Scrooge was great. Yeah, that's a fun show.
It was.
Yeah,
that was a really fun show. Yeah, that was the show when they never told me to stop being a nutcase.
It was great.
Always fun for an actor.
Yeah, well, I loved it because it's like, okay, so I'm playing the judge, so I am center stage the whole time. I'm sitting higher than everybody. It's like this show's all about me.
It kind of was.
It's like, this is
and you
great.
never get a break.
No.
I mean, everyone else gets a break at some point, but not you.
Yeah, it was all right. Because I'm sitting down the whole time, no costume changes. It was really nice.
Well, that's true.
It was really nice.
Yeah, you didn't have to change completely into a different character and put on makeup and take it back off.
Yeah, I first came on in just you know, just a shirt and trousers, and then went into my little room there and came out with the robe and the judge's wig on. It was the only thing I ever had to do.
That's right.
It was nice.
You did have to wear the judge's wig, though. It didn't look comfortable.
No, but it could have been worse. It wasn't too bad. So,
yeah. Well, that's awesome. And so you restore old stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to say radios, but it's everything. I mean, I saw you did a gumball machine at one point, which is really cool. Do you just do this for yourself and just fill up the house with restored projects?
No, I kept the gumball machine.
You did.
I found it at St. Vincent de Paul for $5. And I have a YouTube channel. I have a whopping 161 subscribers.
Oh, well, that's 10,000 times more than my subscriber base.
But, you can go up there and see some of my restoration projects, including the candy machine.
Well, I will link to that on here.
It was in just terrible condition, and I had to buy a new glass globe for it. But it was actually pretty easy to just clean up and repaint and get working and everything. And it's an original penny candy or gumball machine. So
it was a penny machine. Wow.
Yeah.
And so you could find a glass like they had them online.
Found them online. They make reproductions, but I actually found an original on eBay that was in good shape for a lot less. The reproductions are expensive.
Oh, that's always good. Yeah, so you found a real one for less money. Yeah.
And we just put M&Ms in it or whatever. You know, I think I've got Jelly Bellies in it right now, but usually do M&Ms because Jelly Bellies are so expensive.
So, I also saw what looked like a what do they call it? Something that played the cylinders.
Oh, the Edison machine.
The Edison machine.
That's a funny story too, because or an interesting one. When we lived in Roseburg, Roseburg is a lot smaller. Their population is somewhere north of 20,000, so it's pretty small. But they have a lot of junk stores, and I like to do that. I like to go around and poke around secondhand stores and junk stores and things. And I went into one, and this Edison phonograph was sitting on the counter, and I kind of didn't bother with it because I thought they'd want way too much money for it and went away. And I came back 2 or 3 weeks later, and it was still sitting there. And I thought, well, I'm probably right. They probably do want way too much money for it. That's why it's still here.
That's why it's there, yeah.
But I asked the guy sitting there, then this place was not much of a, it was kind of a hole in the wall and everything. What do you want for that thing? And he says, oh, some guy dropped that off and said it was better to donate it than to just throw it away. I'd take $5 for it.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, this thing's literally over 100 years old. And okay. Yeah, here's your $5.
Here's $5. I'll take it.
It was missing the lid because it almost looks like a sewing machine when you put the lid on it. It was missing the lid, but everything else was there, and it came with this great big metal painted horn. It's got hand painted flowers on it.
Nice.
That was included for my $5. So
that's the speaker. Mm-hmm. That's like yeah.
Yeah, so
very cool.
So it does work, but it makes a lot of noise. It squeaks terribly. So I'm working on, or I'm getting around to tearing it apart and rebuilding it. So one of these days, that'll be one of my projects, and I'll probably put that on YouTube too. But since it's in such mediocre shape, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and completely restore it.
Right. Right.
So, because if you can find one in really nice original condition, that's obviously better, like most antiques. But it won't hurt it for me to repaint the thing and refinish the wood and everything, because
I see
so
what you're
far
saying.
gone.
Right, and something that's unrestored is still worth more. That's just starting to be true in the muscle car market. If I had the money, I would restore muscle cars, but I kind of follow. I look at a lot of muscle cars and the restorations of them, and it's just starting to happen that an original unrestored one, if it runs and is not falling apart, is worth as much or more than the restored ones, because it's so hard. Almost any time you restore something like this, you screw it up. And there's a little bit, I see a lot of people, almost every restoration, either they modify it, and that's kind of okay, that's different. But if you restore it to stock, they always put a bright, shiny paint job on it. And it's like, those didn't exist. Why do you do that? That was, and it's going to be cheaper to do one like the factory did. It's less paint, and it's not as expensive. But they want it to last, I guess. So yeah, it's interesting.
You should see my boss's car.
Oh, does he have?
That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
he's had it.
Yeah,
he hasn't had it since new, but he's had it for since it was. I don't know exactly. He's had it since it was just a handful of years old. It's a '71 Chevelle.
Oh, sweet.
SS 454.
Oh, yeah, one of my dream cars.
Other than the fact that it was repainted once many years ago, like 30 years ago or more, it's all original. It is as close to being in like new condition as a car that old can be. It is just about perfect.
So he barely drives it, keeps it in the garage. Nice.
But he does drive it.
He does drive it, yeah. That's good.
It's something else.
Sweet.
It is just, exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, you just can't believe it. You're like, this thing's unrestored. It's like, yeah, it's completely unrestored. And he said he's been in shows. Nice. He's been in shows where they disregard the paint job. They're like, the paint job is so old and it was done so well that we're just gonna.
It's kind of it's not part of our point system.
We're just gonna treat it like it is 100% original. So.
Oh, nice. Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
that's really sweet.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the Navy?
3 years active.
3 years.
And then I was in the reserves for 3 years.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
And did you get out, are there lasting habits that you developed from that? Or did you like it? Did you hate it?
Yeah. Well,
were you you said you were on a ship. What kind of ship did you serve?
I was on an aircraft carrier. I was on the USS Midway, which is now a museum in San
do you know
Diego.
Glenn?
Glenn.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, because there's only 4,000 or 5,000 people on that thing. Yeah.
I did have a friend that served on an aircraft carrier, but I think he was done by the time he's a little older than me, so he probably would have been out by the time you were serving. The Midway, a very famous aircraft carrier.
Yeah, and it's a museum in San Diego now, and we went down there last summer so I could show it to my family, so that was fun.
Ah, sweet. My brother-in-law has been to that, so yeah, I would love to go there.
Very interesting because it had been over 30 years or thereabouts, and they've changed it a lot because it's all a museum now, so they've actually opened things up and taken some things out and done it. So you kind of get lost. Like, I used to live on this thing, and I couldn't find my way around
it. Oh, how
anymore.
Interesting.
But I was telling people, I said, one of the reasons for that is when you're serving on there and you're just this 20-year-old kid, you go where you're allowed to go, and you don't go anywhere else.
Oh, right.
So I had this set route. I'd get up in the morning and go get something to eat, and then I'd go to my office that I worked in and ready room. And you could, you would go to the library or the barbershop or whatever, but you didn't go where you weren't allowed to go. So
that makes sense.
Now that you can go all over this thing as a museum, there's a lot of places I never went.
Well, that's pretty cool. You get to see all this stuff you didn't see even when you served on the thing. What did you do?
I was a yeoman, which is
I've heard the word.
It's administration, but
okay.
The difference is there's what's called a personnelman, and they take care of things for enlisted personnel, and a yeoman takes care of things for the officers.
So were you an officer then?
No,
like a petty officer. No,
petty officer. Yeah, that's enlisted though. I was the Navy equivalent of a corporal.
Okay,
was the highest I got in my 3 years, I started out just kind of as a regular yeoman, and then at one point I got transferred to the ready room, which is where all the officers hang out when they're not flying. And so I was the operations yeoman. And that was a lot more fun. That was,
oh yeah,
you got to keep track of all the flight operations and make up the flight schedule and, enter all of their, information in their flight logs and things. And it was a lot more interesting than just data entry, basically, into people's service records.
Well, that's like it's like an operations manager for an airline that kind of do the same, similar, but they're not dealing with fighter jets,
right?
You hope.
Yeah.
So what were they flying at the time? Do you remember?
Back then, it was an attack squadron, which means bombers. They were A6 intruders.
Yeah, okay.
Which have been since been retired and have been replaced with. They were replaced with the F-18A or whatever it's called.
I
don't even know if they're still using those, but
I think the reserves use them. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure they still fly F-14s out of Portland. At least they were for a long time. Yeah.
They didn't have F-14s on the Midway because it's too old.
Right.
The flight deck's too short. Those F-14s are so tall. That,
really?
So the F-8,
they wouldn't fit.
Nope. So they had the F-18s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the intruder could carry a lot, from what I remember.
Yeah.
It could carry a lot of ordnance.
Do a lot of damage. Yeah. But we didn't. So we had a lot of exercises and things, and we didn't really get into any real stuff. We'd sort of hang around when there were coup attempts in the Philippines and stuff. You sort of hang out as a show of force. And during the Iran-Iraq War, we were escorting Kuwaiti oil tankers through the Straits of Hormuz.
Oh, interesting. But you weren't involved in combat stuff.
No. Uh-huh. Yeah. During the first Iraq War, the short one, I had come home and had just joined the reserves and had only gone for a few weeks, and that war to along, and they activated us.
Oh wow!
And we're like, are we gonna go over there? And they said, no, you're gonna go to San Diego and just fill in for people who have already gone overseas. And we're like, well,
interesting. That's cool. Well, that's not too bad.
But what ended up happening is we literally just sat around the reserve center for a week, and then the whole thing was over and done with so fast. They were like, skip it, you're back on reserve. And
oh my gosh!
Go home. So yeah,
I forget how quick that was.
That was
It didn't last. Did not last. How long have you been married?
Just over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I waited.
You good?
I waited a long time. Yeah. I was 41 when I got married, so yeah.
And your kids are pretty young.
They're about to turn 9. They're about to turn 9.
Oh, are they twins?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, I saw a picture and I thought, boy, they almost look like twins, but I guess it was the way they were standing. One looked really much taller than
he is. He is. They're as fraternal as can be. One is taller than the other. One's left-handed, one's right-handed. One's got green eyes, one's got blue eyes. Their hair color is different.
Interesting.
It's different as two brothers are, Yeah, so they were just born at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a handful, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my wife has, we have our... from her first marriage, my stepdaughter. So that's been, she's much older, 26, I believe. And, so that was a big gap for my wife, and I never had any kids of my own, and, so it was interesting, but we're happy. We had the good big family vacation last year, and this year we're just going to go to the beach, I think, and take it easy. Not do the big travel.
Yeah. Where'd you go last year?
Well, like I said, we went down to San Diego to see the ship.
Oh, right. That's when you went. Cool.
Took the kids to Legoland, and SeaWorld, and all of that. So I was like,
I do like SeaWorld, but not anymore. I've heard too many stories, and not only from internet stories, but I've heard actual people who've worked there, and I was like, don't tell me that. It's such a fun place.
I know. You just never know what's going on behind the scenes.
You don't know. Heidi and I went there one year. I think it was close to the time we were moving back from LA, so we were trying to get in all the things we hadn't done or that we wanted to do again. And so we go there on a fall evening. It's not very long from closing, and it's the last Shamu show, and we're like, oh, awesome, let's hit it. And we run in there, and the place is not very full, but there's lots of room down in front.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, whoa, why is no one sitting there? We run to the front, And yeah, seawater is pretty dang cold when it comes from a whale's tail. It goes by you, and he splashes does what he's trained to do and splashes you with seawater. And then they explain, that was 50 gallons of seawater. And it's freezing. It's instantly cold. We had to go buy San Diego, SeaWorld sweatshirts so we could go to the rest. It was fun, but it was pretty hilarious. Yeah. We weren't even thinking, because we're so used to, and San Diego's quite a bit colder. We're so used to LA where, night at night, you're not going to get cold if you get wet. But in San Diego, oh yeah. Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, we were in September, so yeah, it definitely. So, but we had a good time. We didn't have too many snags. It was just getting home was the real hassle. The airport horror stories and all that.
You had
San Francisco closed a runway.
Oh shoot.
And so they were just discombobulating the entire West Coast. And we, here we've got, I think my kids had just turned 8. And, we were in the airport forever. And I don't know what, we got home at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yikes. Yeah, we have one of those stories as well. And I can't, it was the last time we went to LA, which was just for a visit. And jump on the plane, San Francisco. We got to San Francisco. Jump on the plane. We got halfway to Eugene, and they said, sorry, we need to turn around. And we're like, oh, crap. Man. I mean, 2 thoughts go through my mind. One is, what's really wrong? You don't just turn around,
right.
That's not a casual decision. I'm like, no. And then the other one is, what in the world could be wrong that he does sound pretty relaxed, and but it's too big a deal. And I think what happened was there was a warning light, and it wasn't going off, and they were not getting a solution. Like it wasn't.
Okay.
They were not like, oh, it's just a short here, or it's just this. It's like, no, something's wrong, and it turns out something was wrong there. I think it was the elevator was having a problem, so we were in far more danger than people realize. It's like, thank God. He said, yeah, we had to land a little fast. Oh, it wasn't the elevator; it was the flaps. The flaps were not coming down all the way, so they had to land at a higher speed. But it's like, that's bad. Yeah, that's really could be dangerous. So
I've never had everybody's had their share of turbulence and things, but I've never had one of those.
No, we hadn't either. I mean, we haven't flown a ton, but
I've flown.
Is that me?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm hearing some noise. Oh, I know what it is. It's nothing.
When I was in Japan, I had to fly. It's a 11 or 12 hour flight, across the ocean. So that's.
And those were prop planes, right? Those were like
no, it wasn't that long ago. What was funny though, the nice thing about when you're serving overseas, they give you a month of leave.
Oh, nice.
So you get to come home for a month. It's like, well, if you're going to have to fly all the way across the ocean, let's make it worth your while and give you a month. So I had been home for a month and had a very nice visit and everything in the summer. And was going back, and I flew all the way back, and it's about midnight by the time I get to Japan, and I get off the plane and walk into the terminal, which is virtually empty except for this small group of people, and I walk right into a girl I went to high school with.
Oh, man, that's so nuts.
Yeah, she had been over there.
That is so crazy,
as a kind of exchange student or helping teach English and stuff, and she was going to be flying right back to Oregon. So she was sitting there waiting to fly back. I was just like, oh, I know you. What are you doing here?
That always seems so bizarre.
I know, those coincidences and things. Yeah. Just like, wow.
It happens in an airport. Yeah. It's nuts. Oh, yeah. So I was looking, I don't remember at what point, but I saw somewhere, I think you said you liked Westerns.
I do.
You like old books. You like Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a relief, because the last guest I had on here didn't like Westerns.
I heard that,
Sean, what's your problem?
Yeah, I grew up.
You're the right age. You should like Westerns.
I grew up watching Westerns with, my dad and my brother. So,
Do you have any favorites?
My favorite Western of all time is actually The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, well,
yeah,
you can't go wrong there.
It's just,
you can't go wrong there. I've watched it so many times that I think, am I really going to watch this again? And then I just get sucked right in. Yeah. I do get tired of the music by the end, but the tension that's created, the amount of the amount of time they spent on every shot. You can almost pause any shot and it's a picture. It's like a photograph. Yep. That just doesn't happen anymore. Yeah, That one's hard to do better than that. I mean, I like them all the way back to Stagecoach, which I think I've only seen once, but it's a good Western. I like a lot of them.
I think I've
Rio Bravo and
I've seen most of those. I don't think I've ever seen Stagecoach from start to finish. I've seen quite a bit of it, but my mom's a huge John Wayne fan, so she's
it's more the director that is always directing John Wayne that I like. Like John Wayne is. I mean, he's okay, but
it depends on the movie.
It depends on the movie.
He's a lot of fun in True Grit. He is. He did well in that.
True Grit. There's another one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And The Shootist. That's one of my favorites because it's so involved with what's really happening in his life. It's really interesting. Not a great movie, but the fact that he's going through similar stuff than the story.
Yeah.
True Grit's an awesome movie. Much better. I kind of like the second version, but the first one just really outshines it. But I still like, what was a Tombstone?
Tombstone's really good. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
It's a fun movie. It's a far cry from history, but it's a fun movie. Of course, most Westerns are. Dances with Wolves I liked because it was about Native Americans, and there's like 3 of those.
Right.
3 Westerns that are about that, which is sad, but that's the Western. Cowboys and Indians, not Indians and cowboys.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Well,
I still am waiting for. There was a series of "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee," and I think it was kind of terrible. So I hope somebody redoes it.
Oh, okay.
You ever read that book?
No. Well, no. Wait a minute.
Tough read.
No. But it was so long ago that I barely remember it.
Okay.
It was like required reading in grade school or junior high. So yes.
Yeah, it's the history of the American Indian told by American Indians. Strangely, it was written by a white Caucasian, but he did a really good job researching it, and he quotes, all the stuff is from Indian writings and Indian stories. It's just such a different view of the world. Extremely hard to read, but different.
I'm pretty sure I did read it.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was 30 or 40 years ago. So
right.
Yeah.
So. I think I read it after high school sometime, and then I've tried to read it again. It's a big book, but if you ever want to know the real history of the West, that's a good one.
Okay,
gentlemen and ladies. What about did you like Deadwood? Did you ever watch that?
I went to my friend's house one time and he happened to be watching it, and I thought the language was a little over the top. I'm not squeamish about it, but I thought it was laid on with a trowel and just thought it was too much and just couldn't really get into it. So.
That makes sense. And it's not it's not exactly a Western. It's set in a Western time, but it's not exactly a Western. It's interesting. Oh, one thing I was going to mention, I watched, you ever heard of YouTube?
Yes, I am familiar with it. Yes.
I've went down one of the rabbit holes of Sergio Leone, and I found out, I always wondered why the dubbing was so stupid, like why this was so bad. And I finally found out that they didn't ever use sound on set because they didn't want to waste time with it. He was like, why? No, that was stupid. That'll take forever if you try and do sound on set. So basically, it was like a silent movie, and every single sound is put in.
I'm a huge Orson Welles fan as a director, and he did that in all of his later movies.
Oh, he did.
They're all looped, and it's hard to take sometimes. It is. And a lot of times he would shoot it, and then months later he wouldn't be able to get the actor that appeared on screen to come in and do the voice work, so he'd do it himself.
Oh, no.
And he was very talented, but he's got such a distinctive voice that you're like, it's Orson Welles' voice again.
It's Orson.
And I
didn't realize that.
And like his take on Falstaff, which is a movie called Chimes at Midnight, and it is an excellent movie. It's a silent movie that's been post-dubbed, and there's not enough Foley work on it. So you'll see the guy, he's walking through this old castle, and you can hear his boots on the stone floor. They put that in there, clop, 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 clop. And then he's talking, but there's no other sound whatsoever. There's no rustle of fabric. There's no...
So there's no, room sound.
Right.
So it's,
right. There's just not enough ambient sound.
Not enough ambient.
It's very distracting, but once you kind of get past it, it's, it's weird. Speaking of Westerns and sound, did you ever hear Warren Beatty's story about Shane?
No.
Oh, okay. Real quick. He was making Bonnie and Clyde, and he wanted it to be shocking, with especially the gunshots. And so he started talking to George Stevens, who directed Shane, because he remembered that the gunshots in Shane were very shocking. They jump out at you. They're very loud. So he talked to George Stevens, and George Stevens said, that's what I was going for, because we want it to be, it's not supposed to be a romantic Western. It's supposed to be...
It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah. It's taking a look at gun violence and things. And so he said, we were shooting blanks into trash cans and things like that. And so he told Warren Beatty these techniques, and Warren Beatty used them in Bonnie and Clyde. And then when they got to the premiere, I think it was in London of all places, he got to the premiere of the movie. He's sitting there watching it with everybody, and the sound is all wrong. He says the gunshots aren't jumping out at you. And so he runs upstairs to the projection booth, and the guy's sitting there, and he starts asking him about it. And the guy says, you produced this picture? And Warren Beatty says, yeah. And he says, I've really done you a favor here.
Oh, no.
He says, I've made a chart. He says, the sound is terrible on this movie. He says, I made a chart here, and I turn it up here, and I turn it down here, and I turn it up here, and I turn it down here. He says, this is the worst mixed picture I've seen in years. I haven't had a picture this badly mixed since Shane.
Oh, that's a great story. That's genius. Yeah. It's funny because I still have a rough time watching Shane. I like it more now because I know what it's about.
Yeah.
But I've always thought the acting in it is just terrible. I don't like the lead actor that much, although I've seen him in enough things that I can see, okay, he is acting. And the kid I thought was terrible. And there's all this, Shane always is like at the top of people's best Western list, sometimes best movie ever list. I think part of it is just because Hollywood is so, PC, and it was about gun violence before any movie was about. And I mean, that's a good thing and all, but it's interesting because I have to struggle to watch that freaking movie.
I know.
And, there are some fantastic scenes in it. And it was, what's his name's first movie?
Jack Palance.
Jack Palance. Yeah. That was his first movie, and of course he steals every scene. Talk about eating the scenery.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I love the way.
The minute he comes on screen, I'm like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
Now it's a movie.
I know. But I love the way they used to do things in movies when they had to sneak things past the censor. Mm-hmm. Because the scene with Jack Palance and Elisha Cook Jr., he says, Jack Palance is like, I hear they call you Stonewall. I bet they named a lot of you Southern trash after old Stonewall, And Elisha Cook says, who'd they name you after? Or do you know? Which is his way of calling him the bastard without actually doing it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And it's like, that's clever. Yeah.
Clever. Yeah, there's many scenes with him not saying a word, and all you want to do is watch him. I don't know what it is.
Prove it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I was like, he's going to die, but how? How are you going to kill this guy? Yeah. So that part of it is really good. Really good. Social media. Why did I write that down?
Oh, that's that thing. Yeah.
You have your own YouTube site. How long have you had that? That's social media now. I never used to think so, and that's turned into a social media site. It's very interesting.
My wife thinks I should, put my face on on camera a little more. I barely do it. Once in a while when I'm reaching for something in one of my restoration videos, you can see me, but I usually don't. And I started doing it when we lived in Roseburg, so I've been doing it for it's probably going on 5 years. And I've got
that's a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm living in the past. I need to spend some money, like you have on your podcast setup, which is very impressive. I'm still using an iPad. And
yeah. Oh, wow. That's impressive to me that you're doing it on an iPad and editing it.
I had an editing app that I was using that was really great, but my iPad is old now, and I can't get a software update or an iOS update.
Oh, okay. So it's like my situation here. Yeah.
So I need to actually maybe buy a camera and do my editing in a computer and everything. So my videos now, I don't edit them like your podcast. I don't.
Okay. You just go.
I go set it up in the garage where my little workbench is, and I'll turn it on and say, here's my radio that I'm working on, and here's what I'm doing to it, or here's what I have done to it in this segment. And I just put it right up on YouTube. I did one today before I came here.
Awesome. See, it surprises me you don't have more subscribers, because I like those kind of videos. I mean, when I occasionally, all the time, I want to fix something and I look up videos, and I don't want the one where somebody's jumping on, and they have 10 cuts. It's just his face, but it cuts 10 times in this sentence that I've just said. And these bug the hell out of me. Apparently people love it because those are the ones with millions of subscribers. I don't know why, but the ones like I really I'm always kind of wishing there was car restoration videos like that, because all the car restoration shows, including the one that's produced in our sister city, they're all about writing a script about all the crap that these guys are going through with each other, which is mostly just...
It's fake.
Absolutely. It's fake, and it's ridiculous. And it's like, I would love to watch you guys restore cars, but I don't want to watch you argue, and I don't want to watch you have to get... It's always, we got to get to the car show, and we only have 24 hours. Yep. Well, why didn't you start earlier? For one, I know you did. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. You know about this car show 3 years ago. It's the same show.
I kind of gave up on those
kind of stuff.
There was a show called Desert Car Kings that was on for only a season or two, and it was terrible. So that's why
Yeah, I saw at least 8 episodes because I try them all.
The reason I gave up on it and gave up on those shows in general, because I know exactly what they do it on Pawn Stars and everything. It's I'm like, you're the one that hired these idiots. Why do you spend all your time complaining about them?
Why do you? The only one that's not like that is the 2 guys in the van looking for
pickers.
Pickers.
Yeah, that show's very fake too, though.
It's very fake, but it's more. I mean, it's written better, I guess.
It is.
They do a better job,
be interesting.
and they're not arguing with each other. They're not making up these. Oh, we've got to get back to the ranch or whatever.
Yeah. They had a radio. I guess I've been told they recently, just in the last episode or 2, they had a radio collector on there, and I need to go back and watch it on demand to watch that, because I guess it was very interesting.
Oh yeah.
Because I need. Yeah. I'm always interested.
Well, obviously they're fake. They're not going to walk up to some stranger's house with a camera set up. At least one. There's probably got 3, and say, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah. I guess it's
nice to meet you.
I guess it's all been done in advance, including the haggling, the prices, and everything. So everything, all of that you see on camera is fake. They've already worked out all.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. Oh
it's
my
like, what a shock.
God!
Fake television.
What about Batman Begins? Now that's real. Come on.
Of course it is.
That's real. Yeah, it's the show that's done here, Graveyard Cars. I would love to watch people take a piece of crap Plymouth and restore it to the way they do it, but I don't want to watch them argue about it.
Yeah, the one I used to watch
too bad
because there wasn't a lot of drama was Wheeler Dealers. I used to like that because they would do a good job. And occasionally they'd throw in little things like, oh, you can't do that. That's going to run our budget through the blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, it was just, I'm going to go, buy the parts or get this part refurbished while you're in the shop,
right,
pulling that engine. And
yeah, see, those are that's what I like about Pickers. It may be fake, but it's not so. They're not trying to create this insane amount of drama.
Yeah, all of the things they're trying to buy are real and everything. It's just that it's not quite as spontaneous as it looks.
Right, right. So in that, I mean, having said that, they actually do a pretty good job because they're not actors, and they make it look. They make it look good. They make it look good.
I need to look at some techniques for getting my viewers and subscribers up on YouTube, because I get frustrated because somebody they put a restoration channel up there, and I swear it was like one video they had just started, but they must have already had a channel or something.
I've watched several different videos on trying to get my subscribers up, and I realized the main thing they tell me I'm never going to do, because having a name that makes sense, like that, I'm never going to change the name of my channel. I've had mine for at least 5 years, and I change my mind on what I'm going to do on it every day. I started out, I can't even remember why I put a video. Oh, I just put random videos up so I could watch them on a bigger screen. And then I did some drum videos, and then I hurt my back. So now
I watched one of your drum videos.
You did?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So you know how random and scattered my YouTube channel is, and that's like rule number 1. Yeah. Don't scatter, have a focus. And then there's a lot of other things that I think are just total BS, because the way I think the way these people get subscribers so fast is, 1, they've had channels. So this is like their 5th, 6th, 7th channel. 2, they pay for them. They buy them, and either through advertising or just straight, there's places you can just buy subscribe. You can buy them.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. We saw an article about buying subscribers on Instagram, a news article on a news station, which is all fake anyway. We know that. But it was crazy. They have, and I didn't know how it would help people because Instagram is just like, how does that get you anything? But they have, what do they call them? Click banks, where you buy, like I want to buy 20,000 subscribers. So I pay them $25 and they get, they set up a bank of phones, like 100 phones on the wall. I'm gesturing here. I realize no one can see me and I'm not on YouTube yet, but I'm gesturing. So they have 100 phones up on this wall and they have a guy making fake accounts and going and clicking, subscribing to your deal.
Okay.
And they just do it all day long, and you have 20,000 subscribers in about 24 hours. And, it's like, what? How does that help you? But then I realized you get sponsored. Yeah, when you get your hits that high, then people will pay you to put a picture up or whatever.
Moved up in the queue,
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And I guess those, and, of course, the correspondent said, "Isn't that illegal?" And the guy's like, "Yes, of course it is. It's illegal. It's against the practices, but that doesn't stop people from doing it."
I've seen that because I have one video in particular that's got somewhere north of 12,000 views.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's been up there for three years at least, maybe 4. So yeah, and I noticed the more you get, the more you get.
Exactly,
because it gets higher up and it becomes more visible, and then you get more and more and more and more and more people.
Yep.
So it's still not. I'm subscribed to people who get 12,000 hits in the first hour.
In the first hour, and because they have 20, 30,000 subscribers. Yeah. So it goes up fast.
Yeah.
And,
so for me to have this thing get to 12 or 15, whatever it is now, in 3 years is
it's actually really good.
Yeah.
One of my favorite YouTube inspirational guys. He that's his job, as he speaks about how to get better on YouTube and how to get better with whatever you want to do, and very positive and motivational. But one of the best things he said in a video like this was, he said, really the way to get better at YouTube, the way to get your subscribers, the way to make your channel work is keep putting stuff up. Mm-hmm. Keep making your videos, try and make them better if you want them better, and keep putting them up there, and that's really the way to do it. And if you look at most of, like I did flight simulator videos as well. Don't know if you ever saw those, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's confusing. I don't know why people see one thing on my channel and don't see. Anyway, I just would fly around in the simulator and talk over it and say, this is this new scenery and blah, blah, blah. And so similar channels like this had 10,000, 20,000, and this is a very niche, obviously, very small market. But the people, so there's a website where you can go and look at people's stats. You can just plug in another YouTube channel and it'll show you their stats. And it doesn't cost anything for basic stuff. If you're a professional and you want to see more, like, who cares? But anyway, I would look at the stats of these people, and they have thousands of videos. Mm-hmm. And, they've been on 5-10 years, and they literally have thousands of videos to get to that point. So they're cranking them out, and most of these people who are saying, "Here's how you get more subscribers," as well, hundreds, if not thousands, of videos, all on the same subject. All kind of focused. Mm-hmm. Nothing like nothing like my channel at all. The only reason I have a nice setup here, I want to go, my goal is live YouTube, because I think it's an interesting way to watch a podcast and then still using it as a podcast. And the only reason I have this equipment is because I'm a drummer and I wanted to record drums. Mm-hmm. So I've recorded drums, as you saw, recorded drums in here and for other people, done a bunch of stuff. So when I was kind of out of creative outlets because of my physical maladies, it was just like, hey, I have 2 mics. How hard is it to do a podcast? And it turns out it's kind of hard. It takes some work. It's just, it's like anything.
I have thought about it.
You can't just be lazy about it. But with something like you're talking about, it wouldn't be very expensive. Wouldn't you've probably already got gear that you could start doing it with, and you wouldn't have to do it. It'd be totally on your own timeline. Right, yeah. It would entirely be on your own timeline. It'd be a cool podcast.
Well, the other idea that I had, that there's a little stumbling block, but what I would like to do would be, because I don't think there is one, is I'd like to do a podcast where you compare the book to the movie.
That's interesting. Even if there is one, there's probably not more than one.
Yeah,
and that's another one that's interesting. And I think it was Sean that had the best. Oh, no, it was a couple podcasts ago, one of my guests. He had the best solution for that, and that was watch the movie first. So if you get this idea in your head, and then, because books are so much, to me, books are so much more involved, and they use so much more of your imagination, obviously. You don't have a soundtrack. You don't have all this stuff in your face. So I kind of agree. If you don't want the movie ruined for you, watch the movie. If you still want to read the book, because or get rid of that idea that it's going to be the same.
Right.
It's like it has the same name. It's going to have the same characters.
Yeah.
But, it's not what you read.
Kind of a hobby of mine. Comparing the book to the movie. And it was interesting because we just did that little 7-day challenge thing on Facebook.
Oh, right.
I challenged you because Tammy Dingle, who I met through the VLT, challenged me, and I challenged some other theater people too. But when I was doing that, one of the books I put up there was an Australian book called Wake in Fright, and which is a really interesting, it's definitely worth reading. It's a fascinating book. And the movie that was made around 1970 is a very faithful adaptation of the book. It's really close.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. That's so rare.
Yes, and it's
really rare.
Exceptionally well done. It's a great movie. And I had no idea of this, but as I was looking this up when I was going to put it on Facebook, I saw that they just recently, like within the last year or less, did a mini-series version of it, sort of a remake. And I don't know where it was. I don't think it was on Netflix, but it was on somewhere, Amazon or Hulu or something. But reading the reviews on IMDb, they said they really, probably because they made it longer as a mini-series,
right?
They changed a lot of it. They said the same basic plot and everything, but they ended up changing it and modernizing it. They said it in the modern day instead of back in the late 60s or early 70s. And I thought, what's the point? Just read the book because it's outstanding, or watch the movie because it's outstanding too. Why have to come along, 40 years later and screw it up?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. And well, it would make a good podcast. I would be on it. I would be the one saying, whatever, watch the movie. But the other way, I also have a hard time sometimes, a lot of times, when I watch a movie made out of the book. But recently I had a very good experience watching Catch-22.
See, I haven't seen the new version, no.
So the new version is brilliant in a lot of ways. It is not the book either. But the book, is also brilliant. I got it on tape just to see, okay, what is the book? Because I watched the new version, which I thought was really fun, really well done, really cool. And then I think it was Netflix put the movie up because they're like, well, you're going to show that? Well, we have that too. So they put the 70s movie up, which is directed by a really talented director who I think it's Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols. And immediately, from frame one, you see the difference between modern day directing and TV series production and making a movie when you just had cameras and film, and you're not going to do much to it in post. Real airplanes. They had 17 B-25s. They yelled over the B-25s for 30% of the movie, 40% of the movie, because that's what you'd be. It's a little interesting because if you're not mic'd, actually, you can hear over a B-25 really easy. They're not very loud. I've been next to them when they're running, and you can talk. They're not. So they overplayed that, but it just made a very interesting thing. And I thought, well, is this the book? And of course, it was not either.
That's what I've heard.
It's only
I've never read the book, but I've seen
2 hours. It can't be the book, and you can't quite do the. They were both versions pretty risque, but the book is really strange, and also funny, which is funny and irreverent. Very strange take on World War II, and probably one of the earliest that took it apart like that. Because, everything before Catch-22 was John Wayne.
Sands of Iwo Jima.
Exactly. That was it. You didn't make a movie against war, period. But then the Vietnam came along and they said, well, we can. Let's do this. Yeah. Anyway, so interesting to compare the two versions in the book. And
I've done it on a lot of classic movies and books, and the only problem I think would be if you'd have to have more than one person. You can't. It's boring to have one person do a podcast. It is. It's more fun to have someone to play off of.
Yeah, I realize that, and unless there are some radio personalities that do podcasts by themselves, but they're not an hour.
Or if you're Mike Rowe and you're doing that little 8-minute Paul Harvey rest of the story thing, it's brilliant.
Exactly.
But
he's Mike Rowe as well. So but there's only one of those voices.
The problem is you'd have to have, I would have to have read the book, and you would have to have read the book, and then we would have both had to have seen the movie or watched it together or whatever, and then we would sit down and talk about it. But the problem with that is it's easy to do a movie podcast. We're going to take 2 hours and watch a movie, then we're going to do a podcast. But if you have to have people actually read the book, it could take a while.
It might take a little more prep than what I've done. And this is something. This will be my little. I'm trying to tell people hints about starting a podcast. And this is late in the show. I usually start earlier, but here's my latest hint: plan out your guests a little further ahead than 2 or 3. This is something I'm realizing on episode 11 now. Although I'm very proud that I've made it to 11. You might want to get some guests lined up, and for that kind of show, you definitely would have to give people a good 2 weeks at least.
I think so,
unless they read the book already and have seen the movie.
You could start out.
You could look for that. Yeah,
you could start out doing all the ones that you've already seen and read, and then you'd have to start to work in the ones that you haven't. But but that was my idea. I thought that would be a fun.
I think that's another,
because there's a million movie podcasts where they just and the bad movie podcasts are fun. Where they
even the bad ones,
they slam the bad movies. Those are the best podcasts.
Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you meant
not a bad podcast
about movies.
A podcast about bad movies. When they're doing.
Well, that would be the funnest.
That would. That's a bad podcast.
It's a bad podcast about good movies.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll be my next one.
I'm sure there's lots of those too. But I used to listen to one, and they had a title that was sort of like the name of your podcast. The podcast was called It's That Bad.
Oh, nice.
And they had it on. They were on for a long time, and it was very funny. There was these 3 guys then, and they would go after all of these atrocious movies, and some that were not so atrocious, that were just kind of love them or hate them, like Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, no.
Some people like it, some people don't.
I have a lot of those that everyone else seems to like, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Wedding Crashers?
So they would do, and they were keeping their anonymity for some reason. It had something to do with whatever they did for a living. And then at some point, someone online outed them, gave out their...
They were probably directors or producers
something.
or something.
Yeah, somebody gave out their identities, and they were like, we're done. Bye.
It's something I'm learning even as a really, 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 really small actor, even small market actor, because I am doing like a YouTube series now. And something I'm realizing so much more about why actors, directors, producers never seem to put down a movie or an actor or another. I'm starting to get it. It's like, well, of course they want to work.
Right.
They're not going to say, oh, yeah, that movie I was in sucked, because maybe that director's going to make something else, or maybe that director's going to produce something that's good.
It's kind of the same way with local theater. You have to be careful what you say, because you might work with someone someday.
Exactly.
That show was so loud. Oh, wait, you directed that? No, not that.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean that version. I meant cottage theater.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, even more so because it's such a small group. I mean, every time I do something that's involved acting, there's like 10 other people there that knows this person, that knows that person. I'm doing this model shoot now. Now I'm a model.
Oh, wow.
For the first time in my life. And it's kind of fun because it's a book that takes place in the 1700s. So they gave me a costume, and I'm supposed to show up like every month. But of course, at every shoot, I see people that I've known, because they just tapped into the acting community to try and find people that could do this. And I was also really surprised. I don't think this is always true with modeling, but I was really surprised how much acting I got to do, because they want us to do like basically a scene, and it's a frozen scene, but it helped. really help to know
you
something.
just can't just, I guess, stand there and strike poses. You actually think it would work better if you were just doing something.
If you can emote somewhat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. It really makes, I mean, some people I think are just born with a face that works for modeling somehow. But yeah, it definitely helps if you have, I guess, some kind of acting ability.
Yeah,
helps somewhat.
I would think.
Well, shoot, we've been going on and on. This podcast is, it's funny because I looked at one point and I thought, we've got a lot more time if I want to fill an hour, but now we've filled much more than an hour.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's been really great having you. I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, I guess I'll try and do a wrap up now. That's
okay.
what I was going to say.
I'll let you.
So thanks, Dan Squire, for being on the podcast. You've been listening to Were You Still Talking? With Joel Albrecht and Dan Squire today. And hope to see you soon. I'll be back, well, as soon as I get a guest or two or three. Be good to each other.